Well, for more on China's two sessions, I'm joined by current affairs commentator Einar Tangen, live from Beijing. So, Einar, looking at the goals laid out over the course of the two sessions, which issues do you think could have the biggest potential impact on the economy?
Well, actually, it's the jobs issue and also the numbers that they get. I think Li Keqiang is interested in going back to the old days when the projections made by the government were much lower than the reality. Now, barring a trade war with the U.S., I think this will be a very good year and will probably exceed the 6.5% that he's indicated. In terms of the 11 million jobs, that's 1 million jobs more than they projected last year. Last year they projected 10, made 13, and they're looking for it. But there are serious headwinds. I mean, debt, housing prices, many other issues that he went through. I think what we saw was a much more subdued Li Keqiang talking about the laundry list of issues that China has to face in the coming year.
Now let's break some of that down. Let's start with what have been some of the biggest strengths for the Chinese economy and potentially how they could change going forward.
Well, strength-wise, I mean, it was the jobs and disposable income. If you start looking at how China has evolved over the past few years, you see that there's a continuing strength as it moves from this kind of investment-led, where you invest money in these manufacturing operations, to more consumption and service-led. This is very, very important to China as it kind of tries to transition. One of the main goals, as we've discussed many times, is this middle income trap and how exactly China can do it. But one of the issues there is that, before it used to be a pyramid with basically the US, Europe, Japan, and the developed nations on top. But if China rises to that level, all right, you're going to start to see a very, very different shape of the world. It's going to look more like a sandwich, with developed nations, including China, competing at the highest levels, the developing countries at the lowest levels, and the kind of emerging countries in between. So this is a real concern that's going to be long-term. I think the Chinese government is very aware of this, and they're trying to see how they can leapfrog, not just copy the innovations that are available in the West, but get ahead of them.
Now, we know that Premier Li really shut down concerns about China having this economic hard landing, given the growth that we're seeing so far. And we're seeing this shift to sustainable, high-quality growth. It's really focusing on different sectors, including things that are really driving innovation. How does all this play into the future of the workforce?
Well, this is the difficult part. Technology is giving tremendous amounts of, money. It's creating efficiencies and all these things. But what's happening is everybody is producing more, but using less labor. And with the influx of robotics, perhaps driverless cars, all of these things, you're going to see a profound shift in the labor of the country, not only in China, but the entire world. And it's unknown right now how this is going to work out. It seems that a lot of these people will be employed in the non-essential economy, the kind of what I call the discretionary spending, whether you go to a movie or you get a book or you buy clothes or these types of things, the kind of stylistic things. Remember, in the U.S., 2% of the population is engaged in producing more food than the United States can consume itself. So from this perspective, the world is changing.
Now, what does China's growth outlook and the path that it's really laid out signal to global trading partners, and especially its key trading partner, the United States?
Well, the relationship between China and the U.S. is going to be different from China and the rest of the world. The rest of the world, China is pushing multilateral trade talks. And things. As you'll note, in Chile, China will be sending a special representative, and the U.S. will be sending its ambassador. Up to a week ago, it was reversed. The U.S. had been scheduled to send its U.S. trade representative, and China had been scheduled to just have its ambassador attend. This shows that China continues to start looking at how it can organize trade blocs outside. Now, in terms of the U.S., very different story. President Trump has indicated that he has a me first, America first attitude, and from that perspective, it'll have to be bilateral. But what that means is very difficult. On one hand, The U.S. has reaffirmed the one China policy, but around the edges, you hear things like Max Tillerson will be coming, and he'll be emphasizing that he's going to put pressure on China over the DPRK. Right. So there's a kind of a mixed jumble, one step forward, two steps back.